Welcome to this edition of Seahawks Forever. It is that time of the week where we take a look around the entire division, a division in the NFC West, the only one in the NFL at the moment that has all four teams with winning records. Another big clash in the division this week. Of course, the Seahawks taking on the Cardinals in Thursday Night Football. If you haven't got a chance yet, check out my episode yesterday with Walter Mitchell of the Red Rain podcast. We specifically look at that matchup. But today, it's the NFC West Mixtape. My buddy Rob Guerrera of the Gold Standard Network is going to be joining me here in just a second. We're going to take a look back at the weekend that was, some dramatic finishes and big results in the NFC West, and then look ahead to the Thursday night game and also the what the 49ers, Cardinals, and Rams have ahead of them this weekend. Some big injury news in the division. We'll get you updated on that as well. The NFC West Mixtape today on Seahawks Forever.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
Still time to check out the Red Hot Sales event from Omaha Steaks. Head to their website, omahasteaks.com. Check out their most popular variety packs. They're going to give you 50% off right now and an additional $35 off if you use the promo code FOREVER. These are USDA certified steaks. The Viens family's been eating them ever since I was just a young kid. That's why I'm so strong. It's all that protein. I love Omaha Steaks. Great product. And right now is the best time to try them if you haven't already. 50% off plus an additional $35 off if you use the promo code FOREVER. Also, a shout out to my buddies over at Fast Fashion Brewing on First Avenue in Soto. If you're going to any of the Mariner games this week, they open a 6-game homestand to finish out the regular season, starting tonight with the Colorado Rockies. They can clinch a playoff spot tonight. They can clinch the division as early as tomorrow. They still have a shot at the 2 seed. I expect a lot of jam-packed, excited crowds there at T-Mobile Park. Swing in for a beer. They're right next to Hooverville, across the street from Showbox Soto. Say hi to my buddy Matt Storm. He runs the place, and try some of their delicious beers. And tell him Dan sent you and that you listen to Seahawks Forever. They will love that. Also, subscribe to the channel. I'm not going to get into all the other ways you can support me because we got to get into this episode, right? But all the ways you can are linked and listed down below as always. Let's catch up on a little bit of news. This is the injury report from yesterday. And again, on a short week like this, these are estimates because neither team practiced yesterday. So these are estimations of what would have happened if they had practiced. For the Seahawks, a couple of additions to the injury report. Elijah Arroyo with a groin. Nick Emenwari still with an ankle. Zach Charbonnet with the foot. We knew that. Ernest Jones would have participated, they said, but he does have a shoulder that he's nursing a little bit. A couple of injuries that we picked up on Sunday that happened late in this game. Josh Jones, who was only in the game because they were resting some starters with that big lead in the 44-13 win. He injured his ankle, would not have participated in practice. That's the expectation there. Limited participation for Julian Love, Boye Mafe, Jalen Sundell, Leonard Williams, Devin Witherspoon, and then Robbie Oots would not have practiced, they think, with an ankle. As much as I love what Oots has brought to the table, probably something that they can weather in this matchup if he would have to miss that one. The real question is, do they get Julian Love back? He sure seemed to be okay on the sidelines when he was jumping around celebrating some of the touchdowns. Devin Witherspoon, not so sure. There was one shot I saw where he was running around on the sideline. He was still kind of limping a little bit, but both of the last 2 weeks before the game on Sundays in Pittsburgh and at home last week, he was doing some running before the game and trying to get going. So hopefully he'll be out there against the Cardinals. For the Cardinals, their big injury, of course, this week, James Conner put on injury reserve. He's going to have surgery on that ankle. He is out for the year. Paris Johnson, their starting left tackle, would have been limited. He did not play against the 49ers, I believe. And then Will Johnson, the outstanding rookie cornerback, didn't play against the 49ers. He's nursing a groin injury. And then Zay Jones is the newest one, the wide receiver, and he is in the concussion protocol. So on a short week, we'll have to keep our eye on that one. That catches you up on all of that. Now let's get to this. If you don't know what this is, call it a spin-off show once a week. Rob and I get together and we take a look around the entire division. I've obviously got my proclivities and my allegiances to the Seahawks. He has his to the 49ers, but as much as we can, we try to take a look at the division with an objective eye and get you caught up and then look ahead to what should be another big weekend in this division. So here's Rob and I with the NFC West Mixtape.
What is good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the NFC West Mixtape. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera from the Gold Standard Podcast Network. That's Dan Viens from the Seahawks Forever Podcast. This is the show where we break down everything happening in what right now, Dan, is the NFL's best division.
There's no question. It's the only one where all four teams have a winning record, and which just makes us look really good because we said it from the beginning of the season. We thought this might be the best division in football, and so far it's working out that way. 3 of the top 10 teams in the latest DVOA rankings too. So all the numbers seem to line up.
It is crazy to think that this is where we are with this division. It's gone through some big changes this past week, which we're going to get to. But clearly the Niners, Cardinals, Seahawks, and Rams have been off to a decent start this year. So let's dive, unfortunately, into the news, Dan. And we have to begin in San Francisco, and not for any good reason. Nick Bosa tears his ACL early in the game in the first quarter against the Cardinals. He is going to miss the rest of the season. It is the 3rd ACL tear that Nick Bosa has suffered in his life. He did 1 in high school, 1 in half decade ago in 2020, and now 1 here. Devastating for the Niners.
Yeah, and I'm one of those fans that I just don't like to see injuries ever, not even when it comes from an arch rival where it may impact, the team that I root for and cover. And it really grinds my gears when fans take pleasure in the injuries of others. I want to play teams at their best. I want to beat them at their best. I want to be at our best. And I want the whole league. I would love to see an NFL season where nobody gets injured. If I had 3 wishes, that would be one of them. I think it would be spectacular. And, he's such a dynamic player. He was literally the difference in winning or losing week 1 here up in Seattle. That's how impactful of a player he is. Especially with all the changes that they have on defense there and all the young players and some of the alpha male type blue chip players that they let walk out the door in free agency this offseason as well. Like, I think a big part of the plan was Robert Saleh is going to get the scheme and get these young guys on the same page. And then Nick Bosa is going to make dynamic plays week in and week out. Without that, it's going to be a huge adjustment. And, the ripple effect of that may be felt throughout this division.
And it was working. Their plan on that defense, replace him with the young players, was working. Michael Williams and CJ West and Alfred Collins, those guys were all getting better. It was working. And just to illustrate the point of Nick Bosa and how big of a loss it is, when Bosa was on the field on Sunday, the 49ers had a pressure rate of 45%. After the injury, their pressure rate fell to 28%. Kyler Murray had a half second more on average to throw with Nick Bosa off the field. So it's a massive, massive difference. The 49ers are 57-28 with Bosa and 6-12 without him. So you cannot overstate how big of a deal this is for the 49ers. The only positive thing that I can take from this is that when Bosa tore his ACL in 2020, Robert Saleh was the 49ers defensive coordinator. And that year, despite a litany of injuries, the 49ers were still a top 5 defense in terms of yards allowed. So Robert Saleh has experience dealing with this, unfortunately, and he's going to need to work his magic again.
Well, and it's always next man up, right? You need to see those young guys continue to take steps forward every week. I mean, Michael Williams certainly has the traits, and we like what we're seeing from Bryce Huff, right? It seems like he's back in a system that plays to his strengths. I don't know what they were thinking in Philadelphia, trying to make him into something he's not. And so, thank goodness you made that move. My question to you is, at what point, and I'm sure it's way too early for this, but with Joe Burrow being out for 3 months in Cincinnati, if that thing starts to go off the rails a little bit and the Bengals start to fall back in the race, if Trey Hendrickson becomes available, I mean, Kayvon Thibodeau, I know that name's been thrown around quite a bit too, but it just seems like a guy like Hendrickson might be a little more available than Thibodeau based on, just what we saw and all the drama in the offseason. That, I think the 49ers have some cap space, right? They're not afraid to trade draft picks. They're not afraid to be aggressive. Do you see an addition coming?
It's a good question. Kyle Shanahan was asked about that yesterday. He said, we'll look into it. We always do, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I think maybe it could depend on how the Niners do the next 3 weeks. I think that they wouldn't tell you this publicly, but deep down in places they don't talk about at parties, I think the Niners internally kind of looked at this year as a transition year, right? We're not really we want to win a Super Bowl, but we don't really think we have that kind of team. 8 new starters on defense. We're gonna, roll the dice and see. That's why this year was about the bloodletting with the free agents leaving and the dead cap money. They lead the league in dead cap money by a mile. I don't think they thought that they were going to be in the Super Bowl conversation. Now, you open the year 4-0 with your starting quarterback, potentially missing 2 or maybe 3 of those games. Maybe you start to redefine what you think you can do this year, and you do pick up the phone and make a call. So, I think it might depend on what happens the next few games, especially, they have Jacksonville, then they play the Rams. Huge game if they're can win that game, and then they would have 3 wins in the division. It might change their thinking a little bit, but I know that John Lynch will make the calls. I know that because they're not afraid to make the calls and take big swings. He once tried to trade for Tom Brady, so he's going to make the calls. We'll see what comes out of it.
Well, and schedule matters, right? And you mentioned the Rams in week 5, followed by the Buccaneers on the road. I mean, they're undefeated and they look tough, but then the schedule really turns, and that the advantages that this entire division gets this year because of the rotational schedule and playing both of the South divisions really starts to kick in. You get Falcons, Texans, Giants, then Rams again, a Cardinals team we're going to talk about that I don't have a whole lot of belief in, Panthers. Who knows what to think of the Browns? They can certainly D people up. And then the Titans, it's a pretty good stretch where you can get by with a few good men on defense to make.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that should be.
I had to. You opened the door there for me.
That should be the Niners headline for the season, a few good men. By the way, you mentioned that Bucs game, sort of, I don't want to call it good news because, again, I agree with you on the injuries, but news that affects the NFC West. Mike Evans is going to miss some time with a hamstring. He's been ruled out for multiple weeks. The Bucs play Philly, Seattle, and the 49ers. They expect him to miss 2 of those games and potentially the 3rd game. So definitely the Seahawks game and maybe the 49ers game. So obviously, that'll be affecting the NFC West as well. That news just came across as we are sitting here taping this early on a Tuesday this because of the Thursday night game. But let's get to this 49ers-Cardinals game, Dan. This is a game, and I've said this every week, 49ers don't win this game last year. This is a game that had every indication that it was going to be the Niners screwing up at the end to lose a game to the division rival like they did multiple times last year. In the last, let's see, I want to make sure I get the actual timing right. The last, 3 minutes of this game or 5 minutes of this game, the Niners threw a pick and then had a safety. Right. And still came back to win somehow without like a blocked punt or anything like that. It's an absurd victory for the 49ers, but once again, they gutted it out.
And with a backup quarterback playing with a knee brace, he got banged up and on the first play of that last drive, he threw a ball to Ricky Pearsall that was, dirted 5 yards in front of him. And I thought, okay, that knee, like he's not able to get, his base. And then he completed, 4 or 5 in a row after that and moved him down into a position for a field goal kicker that can actually make a field goal from 35 yards. That had to be a relief, right? With Eddie Pinheiro taking it home. Just a remarkable game. Like just one of those, like what I love about the NFL. It's a 6-6 defensive battle into the 4th quarter. And then all of a sudden teams trade touchdowns and it's still tied. You think you're looking at potentially overtime and then the safety, you're not expecting that. You think, okay, there was a minute 30 left maybe when that happened, and not a lot of time, and the 49ers only had 1 timeout left, and just did a masterful job of moving down the field. Now answer this for me, because Kyle Shanahan's taken a lot of heat over the last several years in late game management. Probably not taking any this week. I mean, played it perfectly.
And I have crushed him for his game management for 9 years now. This is going on year 9. He's been terrible at it. He was perfect in this game. And it was one of my biggest takeaways. I was so encouraged because not only did he absolutely get the timeouts right when the Cardinals had the ball on their final drive, he manipulated the clock properly and used the timeouts properly to the point where they didn't even need a timeout really on the final drive. They could have done it without having a timeout. But He also was going for it on fourth down multiple times in the game, where in the past he would be so eager to run the kicker out there in the red zone on fourth down. He didn't do that. Even when they failed on the first one to score, he went for it again on fourth down. That was the big Mac Jones pass to Ricky Pearsall that really set up their first touchdown of the game. I don't know if he was like replaced with a pod person or what, but this is the Kyle Shanahan game management that I have been howling for almost a decade, and it was incredible to see. I was so excited about that.
It's really amazing to me how often we see mistakes at the end of games around the league. And where the guys in the booth are pointing it out and screaming about it in advance, like, you better do this, you better do that. Like, maybe they should hire some of those guys and get them on the sideline next to these head coaches.
And for the Cardinals, this offense is just pathetic. It is boring and pathetic. And Kyler Murray, I don't know what happened to his arm. Every throw was a lollipop, rainbow. He used to have a rocket arm. I didn't see that rocket arm on Sunday. Their offense just looks non-functional other than Trey McBride. Kyler can't get on the same page with Marvin Harrison Jr. at all. Also, Marvin Harrison Jr. apparently left his hands in Arizona because he dropped multiple passes in the game. Their offense, what did we talk about with Arizona? Less than the sum of their parts. That is exactly what they have looked like to me so far this year.
And the defense has shown up. I mean, even with all those injuries in the secondary, they were able to hang. And I think it would have been a different game if Brock Purdy was healthy. But still, they look competent on defense, and they're getting good contributions from those veterans they brought in up front. Calais Campbell, the ageless wonder, is still doing it. And Josh Sweat was a great signing for them. But the offense I just can't figure out, other than maybe Drew Petzing isn't the guy. And so he's certainly taking a lot of heat. Arizona Cardinal fans want him out now. And, the head coach is having to come to his defense. And usually when that happens, it's only a matter of time before a change is made. When just, after his first year in Arizona, he was getting head coaching buzz. But I just don't see it in, you and I have talked about it a little bit, but anyone who's watched my show has known for years that I'm not in on Kyler Murray, and I haven't been in a long time. When he signed that big extension, I thought that was good news for the rest of the division. I just don't think he has the it factor. I don't think he cares. And you see it in his demeanor on the field. I mean, he airballs, 3rd and 9 out routes. He throws 3 feet over the receiver's head or into the dirt. And you read his body language. He's not even upset about it. There's no fire there. Every offseason we hear that, he's in the building earlier. He's studying more. He's doing the right things. But on the field, his body language is horrendous. And I'm with you. His arm talent alone used to scare me. That when you play the Cardinals, if you let him hang around, you were always worried about him making that one play, right? I don't even see him have that in him now. And you look at his spray chart, like I think he threw the ball 30 plus times. About a third of those were at or behind the line of scrimmage. They don't have any complimentary receiver to Harrison on the other side outside of McBride. I mean, he's one of the best tight ends in football. But as far as the wide guys, their wide receivers combined don't have as many catches as Trey McBride does this year. And then Harrison, you take him with the 4th pick in the draft, you expect him to be a game-changing type player. And he was hit and miss last year. And then that ball he dropped on their last drive, he might have turned around and scored. I mean, there was nothing but grass around him, and maybe that was the issue. But a player like that just shouldn't ever drop a ball like that. And, he said all the right things and he took accountability afterwards. But again, body language, that team just seems to lack juice. And every year they try to prop him up. The media tries to get behind him, and there were a lot of outlets that were picking them to finish ahead of the Seahawks in the division. And I've never bought it. And I still don't buy it. And I think it's going to be a rough week for them too.
Here is a true statement. Ricky Pearsall has more 100-yard games this season than Marvin Harrison Jr. has in his entire career.
That's a good one. I'll give you another one. Jackson Smith and Jigba has more catches and more yards than their wide receivers combined. So through 3 games this year too. So yeah,
you are, Dan. You're a stat topper. Okay,
you're the guy. You're the guy that's called stats, though.
Well, disappointing game for the Arizona Cardinals, no question about it. We should also mention, I will give maybe a little bit of grace to Marvin Harrison Jr. because it was a bad drop, but that was the first play after the horrific James Conner injury. So maybe, it's hard to just immediately lock in. So I'll give him a little bit of grace there. But he also dropped a touchdown pass later in the game. So, it wasn't great for Marvin Harrison Jr. Prayers for James Conner. A gruesome injury, like to the point where other Niners are waving the medical staff over, and you could hear on the broadcast when they showed the replay in the stadium, because you could hear the crowd gasp. It was right as they were going to break, and you literally heard the crowd go, and I was like, okay, that is not good. So unfortunately, his season is now done, and the Cardinals obviously lose the game. And they have a Thursday night game this week that you may be familiar with, Dan, because your Seahawks are going to play the Cardinals on Thursday night. Your Seahawks billy clubbed the New Orleans Saints. It was over in the first quarter. You had 206 yards just from your special teams unit. They get a touchdown on offense. They get a punt return touchdown. 4 plays later, they block a punt. 6 plays later, they're in the end zone again, and it's 21-0 before you can blink, and that game was done after that.
Yeah, last time I remember a game like that at Lumen Field was, I think it was 2012 against the Cardinals. John Skelton was starting at quarterback, if you remember him, and it was one of those kind of games where, when it rains, it pours, and there were fumbles and for return for touchdowns and blocked kicks and all of that. It was, I think the Saints just finally, the NFC West just wore them down. They started the season with 3 straight games against the NFC West in varying kind of increasing level of difficulty, right? And it was just too much to ask for them. This is a Seattle team that I think was wired so tightly going into week 2 because they knew they let one get away week 1, and they were, we talked about how cranky Mike McDonald was that week. Like, I think that carried over, and they were pissed, and they carried that into Pittsburgh. It took them a half to get going, but you saw them really take control of that game and in some ways physically dominate aspects of that game that we haven't seen the Seahawks succeed at in a while. And so I think they just kind of carried that over, and they came home to the loudest crowd I can recall in years. I had people in the stadium telling me that. They continued to talk about on the broadcast throughout the entire game how loud it was. And, a young head coach and a young quarterback that I think the jury is still out on. Plus they had some injury issues, and they had some problems on their offensive line. It was just kind of a perfect storm where everything went right for Seattle. It's certainly, I don't expect them to hang 44 on a lot of teams this year. But we'll take it, because one of the frustrating things covering a Seahawks team and being a fan of a Seahawks team during the later part of the Pete Carroll era is their inability to put teams away and beat teams that they should beat, and beat teams convincingly that they should beat, and build on leads. And they would let teams back into games. The way that they put their foot on the gas, even coming out in the second half of that one, even when they pulled some of their key starters, I mean, how hard they played. Like they still have a chip on their shoulder, and they're still ticked off about week 1. And I think it's going to be a really, really tough task for the Cardinals this week.
I mean, I don't want to say anything, but the Seahawks were done scoring touchdowns in the second quarter of this game. Fortunately, by that point, they'd already put up like 38 points, so it didn't matter.
Yeah.
You're right. That was so like an old school Seattle game where you've got a young team coming into that environment, and Seahawks get a little bit of momentum, and it snowballs quickly, and the teams are just buried. And the Seahawks would do that to everybody. Even they would do it to the 49ers when the 49ers had Jim Harbaugh, like really good teams. But it was a buzzsaw going into Seattle, and that's exactly what that game felt like. And now you look at the Thursday game, and this is a big game in the division, because now we don't know this for sure. Obviously, the 49ers could lose, but if the 49ers beat the Jags, they go to 4-0. Mm-hmm. You've got Cardinals, Seahawks on Thursday. The loser of that game is going to be 2-2. The Rams are playing the Colts, who certainly have a nice start to the season, but they've also played a little bit of a lighter schedule. I think people think the Rams are better than the Colts. So if the Rams win, then you would have the Rams at 3-1. Like, this is a massive Thursday night game.
Yeah. And it's like, I try as much as possible to be as objective as I can, and to try to be in touch with my fear, because I respect the NFL and I respect the week in, week out grind of it and how difficult it is to win each week, no matter who you're going up against. But this is another one of those games that we've heard now a year and a quarter, essentially, of Mike Macdonald telling us the style of play that he wants from his team and the type of team he wants to put on the field. And we didn't see that in the first half of his first season here. We saw some of it the second half of last season, at least on defense. This year, we're seeing it a little bit more on both sides of the ball. We're seeing a more physical running game, although it's not always working, but we're seeing signs there. For them to do what they did on Sunday and then have a key game like this on Thursday against a team that's limping. And I don't mean to be crass there. I mean, James Conner is one of my favorite players in the league. Everything he overcame early in his career, I hate to see that he's out for the season. Thankfully, I didn't see the injury. I'm not the kind to go look for those highlights. It breaks my heart. But this is a team that's down right now. They're struggling. People are calling for coaches to be fired. The offense can't get out of their own way. This is another example of a team where, if you want to prove that you're that kind of team that's tough and physical and is striving for some things and trying to get some attention and make it be known that this is who we are, you got to go down there and put your foot on them. And I'd be surprised. No, I won't say that. Nothing surprises me in the NFL. I think it would be a disappointment all the way around if the Seahawks even let the Cardinals hang around in this game late.
That's the difference. I feel like if you're a Cardinals fan, you're saying, hey, we're trying to prove that we're building something here finally in this regime. You've got to go beat the Seahawks. But from the Seahawks perspective, they expect to beat the Cardinals. They beat them twice last year. I know it was a different quarterback and all that, but they expect to beat the Cardinals. I'm picking the Seahawks in the game. I fully expect that their defense is going to have no problem controlling this Cardinals offense. The Cardinals offense is dysfunctional. Yeah. The scheme stinks, and the players aren't playing well outside of Trey McBride. So that's not a good combination. It'll probably be, I don't know that the Seahawks, like you said, are going to put up 44 points, but I just have no fear of the Arizona Cardinals right now. And with the Seahawks, I think they have shown you, especially with this damn special teams performance, there's things to fear there.
Yeah. They jump all the way to number 1 in DVOA this week, and special teams is a part of that, obviously, and level of competition. We talked about how it's the best division in football record-wise. They've all gotten to play some pancakes along the way. They all got to play the Saints, and the Cardinals got to play the Panthers as well. So, but there's two things I think working against the Cardinals, and I don't mean to beat up on them too badly, right? But there's two things working against them in this game. Well, three if you include that they lose kind of their heart and soul in James Conner. History, right? They've lost 7 straight to the Seahawks and 12 out of the last 14 going back to 2018. And then they just, for whatever reason, maybe it's just because it's kind of a transient community. A lot of people moved to Phoenix, didn't grow up there, didn't grow up as Cardinals fans. The home support there is even on Thursday Night Football. I wouldn't expect you can get tickets for $40 to go to that game still right now.
Wow.
And when I went and saw the Seahawks play them in Arizona last year, we were sitting in club seats. A buddy of mine has club seats. And I went up to get a beer, and I walked into the inside court of the inside club area, right? Holds about 500-600 people. There's couches and TVs and bars and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was full. There was 500 or 600 people in there watching the game on TV when the game was going on 30 feet away outside in their $1,000 seats. And you see the pictures of the empty seats during games and the fact you can get in the door for, the cost of a preseason game. It's, I don't know that the atmosphere is going to be electric enough down there to kind of help lift them up. And that's a team that needs to be lifted up. Now, there's talent there. And this is, like I say, this is how the NFL goes. If they get off to a good start, they make a couple big plays early, they get a lead, right? Trey Benson's averaging 6 yards a carry. He's a big bruising back. Like, he's talented. You never know what can happen.
Don't play with your food, Seahawks.
Don't play with your food. Get down. Yeah. Hey, 2 games in a row after a year and a half of not scoring a touchdown on their first drive. They've done it 2 weeks in a row now. That's huge. If you can get a lead early, lets that Mike Macdonald defense kind of get into his bag and unleash, all of his little tricks. And then they'll probably get some guys back on defense this week too. So
And if you're Seattle, just keep it close. We talked about it going into the game with the Niners. Arizona can't close teams out. They struggled to close in week 1. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head.
Week 1 for them was the Saints.
The Saints, right. The Saints had the game-tying touchdown in their hands that they dropped. The Panthers, they had a massive lead on the Panthers, and the Panthers came back and almost won that game in the fourth quarter. Yeah. And then against the Niners, Kyler Murray had the ball in his hands where 1 first down ends that game, and he couldn't get a first down in that spot, and the Niners came back and won. So if this game Thursday is close, you got to feel good, Dan, in fourth quarter that Arizona's going to find a way to lay an egg.
And I know it's early, but these games matter. And it's if the Seahawks play with their food, as you say, and miss this one on Thursday to drop to 2-2, 49ers, like you said, playing the Jags this week. I mean, that should be a win, even if Purdy's not back. That's, then the Rams and Niners play each other the week after. Like things could get out of hand pretty quickly for a team that has designs on challenging for a division title, and they're already down 1. You can't afford to slip back in this race as good as those two teams are.
1 game left in the division to talk about. Before we do, though, want to give a shout out to Sleeper. Thanks, Sleeper, so much for hopping on board my channel, the Gold Standard 49ers podcast, working with you as well. We love Sleeper. We're so appreciative of their support, supporting both podcasts. If you want to use Sleeper, I suggest using our code, which is GSP. If you do, you get up to $100 match on your first deposit. You can also use Dan's code if you happen to be a Seahawks fan that's watching us. Which is, what is your code, Dan?
Forever.
There you go. So use GSP, or you can use code forever if you want. I don't know. Whatever you do, use Sleeper. It is the easiest app. I tell people this all the time. I had never used it before this year. It is super simple, and you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. You can't beat that. Just pick higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, passing yards, receiving yards, fantasy points, and more. If you get your picks right, you can win big. I love the app. You can see it on my phone right now. They have NFL. You could do other sports besides NFL if you want, Major League Baseball, whatever your fancy is. Sleeper has it for you. The picks pop right up. I love the way they have all the games arranged by time at the top there. So you can go to the Thursday night game. There's already multiple different picks for you to make. I will take, if I had to pick one right off the top of my head, give me Jackson Smith and Jigba more than 80.5 receiving yards.
Yeah.
He's the only guy they throw to, Dan.
Well, they'll throw a couple to Torrey Horton, but yeah, against that secondary and as banged up as they are, I like that pick. I have stunk in my prop picks so far this year, but my game picks, I went 13-3 this week. I've been on fire the whole season. Love the Sleeper app. It's a great time.
So again, use whatever promo code you want. Mine is GSP. Dan's is forever to get $100 deposit match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. So check out Sleeper today. Last game we want to talk about, or team in the division, I should say, we should talk about the Los Angeles Rams. Dan, oh my goodness. What a game against the Philadelphia Eagles. And look, I know you're like me. You were looking at the Rams schedule and you were like, great, this is a game the Rams are going to lose. And I was figuring, great, that'll help the Niners. But all of a sudden, LA comes out and they are dominating Philly. They are up 26-7 in the third quarter. And then it all collapses. Philly blocks 2 field goals at the end of the game to steal it. This is a horrible loss for the Rams.
Yeah, we thought the 49ers had kicking problems. That's Josh Carty. Is that his name? I mean, that's a tough week. Yeah, I picked the Eagles just because I think I said on our show, like until they lose, you can't pick against them. They've won 19 out of 20 now. They're on an insane heater. And I think they really showed who they are. Like the medal, mark of a good team for me is when you're not at your best. Can you still beat a good team? And I thought the Rams came out and were making a statement. They knew that they let the Eagles get off the hook last year in that snow game in the divisional round, and they're feeling good about themselves. And it looked like they had everything clicking. And at halftime of that game, I thought, okay, well, I picked the Rams to win the division in the preseason. Unfortunately, I think I'm right, and they might be better than I thought they were going to be. Like, that defense is flying around. They put pressure on everybody. I know the Eagles were a little banged up front, so it wasn't the elite kind of offensive line performance we're used to seeing from them, but still, that Rams defense is legitimate. And as long as they can be healthy enough up front on offense to be able to block for now those two backs, it seems like they're getting Blake Corum involved. And then those two wide receivers, that is such a tough cover to go up against a Devontae Adams, who still obviously has a lot in the tank, although should have been pass interference on that first touchdown, but another conversation for another day. I think they kind of it evened out later on. They kind of gave the Eagles one too. But just, what did we say last week? As long as Matt Stafford can stand on his own 2 feet, that team's a contender. And we don't know how long that's going to be, because there was a hit he took in the third quarter where he got up looking like I do getting out of bed sometimes at this time of my life. He did not look comfortable, and it looked like he was grabbing for his back. We haven't heard anything, so hopefully he's fine. But I was just as shocked that the Eagles came back and won that game that the Rams had such a big lead and were dominating the first half the way that they did. I just, even late when on that last drive, when the Rams were going down and trying to score, and it was just all Stafford was doing was throwing the football to Puka Nacua, and they still couldn't stop it, even with all those DBs that the Eagles have. That was as far as early season goes, early season games, that was about as good as it gets.
The Rams, all they do is throw to Puka and Devontae Adams. 69% of all targets for the Rams this year have gone to those two guys, and 67% of receptions have gone to those two guys. That's where I give Sean McVay so much credit. Everybody knows that's where they want to go with the football, and he gets those guys open again and again and again. It is maddening when you are playing the Rams, because you're like, these are the guys that can hurt us, and you can't stop it. But to their credit, they've been really good this year. Here are the Rams' possessions after they go up 26-7. Punt, turnover on downs, blocked field goal, blocked field goal. That was how the Rams finished that game. And I will say this, and maybe this is me with my Niners homer hat on. If Kyle Shanahan had blown a 26-7 lead in the third quarter, we wouldn't hear the end of it. I haven't heard anybody crushing the Rams and Sean McVay. Nobody. If Kyle Shanahan did it, my God, we never would hear the end of it.
Yeah, and I think that's just because of the history. McVay hasn't done that very often, but also who they were going up against. It's the old adage that great players make great plays in great moments, right? And the Rams had certainly shut down Jalen Hurts in the passing attack of the Eagles in the first half, but when they needed it most, who did he go to? It was A.J. Brown, who's off to a slow start this year. And it was there was a moment there, kind of late third, early fourth, where they were just trading punches, where whenever the Rams had the ball, he's throwing it to Puka. And whenever the Eagles had the ball, like Hurts is throwing it to AJ, even when he's covered, just giving him a chance to make a play. And he's so physical, and he was making plays and coming down with it. And that's just what I love about games like that. The Seahawks were the first team to ever see Puka Nacua in a Rams uniform. It was the opener a couple of years ago, and he did that same thing, just dig route after dig route after dig route, middle of the field. And it's a perfect marriage of like what he does really well and probably the best route that Stafford throws. He's so good on those, deep, intermediate, middle of the field throws. It's kind of the flip side of what we talk about, like with the Cardinals, where what Kyler does well doesn't really match up with what Marvin Harrison does well. And that's why they haven't gotten on the same page. But man, when it's clicking, it's a thing of beauty. It's just, I don't ever root for rivals to lose, because I meant it when I said it. I want to play teams when they're at their best. But that was a huge loss as far as the rest of the division is concerned. And that might be one that they look back on 6-8 weeks from now and really lament.
And now you have to play the Colts, which going into the year, we thought, hey, that's an easy win. But the Colts have combined in 3 weeks, 1 turnover and punt. And it was a punt.
They punted once.
1 punt on the year, no turnovers for the Colts. They have been playing some really, really sound football. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Rams come out in this game, Dan, because that is a gut punch of a loss. And not only is it a gut punch of a loss, it's a gut punch of a loss just like they had in the playoffs against that Eagles team last year. It's an NFC conference loss, obviously, which is important when it comes to tiebreakers and all of that. And now you got to get up to face a Colts team that is played. I mean, you can't play better than the Colts have played. I know their schedule hasn't been great, but what they are doing. I mean, when you don't punt, like, what are we talking about? One punt through 3 weeks. Nobody's done that since FDR was in office, literally since 1940. So you can't play better than they've played. Can McVay get the Rams up emotionally after that loss to win a game that they really need to win?
Yeah. First of all, whoever that punter is for Indianapolis, like he's best job in the NFL this year, right? Like easiest, best job. I mean, the pay is pretty good. You don't have to beat yourself up, and he only had to punt one time. Yeah, it's the game of the week really in the NFL. When you look at DVOA, the Colts are second, the Rams are fifth. Coming into the season, there was a lot of talk. A lot of analysts agreed that the roster in Indianapolis was really good. The question was just the quarterback situation. Was it Daniel Jones going to beat out Anthony Richardson, or what was going to happen there? And we've seen stretches like this from Jones before. We've seen him be really good for 6-8 games at a time and then not good. So we'll see which guy shows up this week. It's in LA, right?
It is in LA. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. First of all, he's got the best nickname in the NFL right now.
Indiana Jones. Phenomenal.
It's as good as it gets. I mean, Chris Berman's probably kicking himself for not coming up with that himself. But this feels like the kind of game that Sean McVay usually finds a way to win. It just does. Like when you least expect it. I just keep thinking back to a couple of years ago, coming off the Super Bowl, where they were racked with injuries and Aaron Donald retired, and everybody had picked him to go 6-10 or 6-11. If I can't remember if we had gone to 17 games then yet or not. And then look what they did. They won 10 games that year, and he just seems like one of those kinds of coaches that the more you count out that team, the better chance they have of pulling a surprise. And that's when they're not loaded. And this team's pretty loaded. I like them at home against the Colts.
Yeah, Sean McVay. I mean, he had the 5-12 year in 2022, but other than that, like, they don't have the Kyle Shanahan lost season year. They just don't under Sean McVay. And look, it's one loss, so I'm not, saying that the Rams are, due for a free fall or anything like that. But you're right. The reason that they don't have those is because they win games like this. It's going to be interesting. The Colts have a nice underrated group of skill players. Daniel Jones is there, obviously. Jonathan Taylor looks phenomenal, leading the league in rushing. Yeah. Pittman at wide receiver and Alec Pierce are solid players. Josh Downs too. Tyler Warren, obviously, at tight end, looks the way a lot of people thought that he was going to look coming into the league. So it's interesting. They got some things to work with on offense. The key for the Colts, I feel like, is pressure. Can they get pressure on Matthew Stafford? They haven't really wowed me in terms of their ability to get pressure on the quarterback. So that's what it's going to come down to if the Colts can pull that off. I know I'm going to be the biggest Colts fan in the world on Sunday.
Yeah, we all are. Yeah. Let's get the Rams another loss.
Yeah, well, please.
Are we supposed to say that we're supposed to focus on the whole division here, right?
Like, I'm not. I got a Kittle jersey hanging in the background here. I think we all know where my allegiances lie.
I've got all the VHS tapes in the back there.
Respect. I was the happiest guy in the world. The Niners kicked off at 4:30 last week, and the last 10 minutes before the kickoff saw the Browns block the Packers field goal attempt. So that Packers a loss. And then I saw the Eagles block the Rams kick and return it for a touchdown. I was like, this is great. Two huge rivals in the NFC, both losing games. This is fantastic for me.
Yeah, the NFC's been interesting. I mean, I picked the Ravens last night. I think the way the Lions have bounced back since that really bad performance week 1, they look dominant again. Like, who's Ben Johnson, right? They just look phenomenal. Yeah, there's some things going on. I still feels like there's a real strong potential to get 3 teams in the playoffs out of the NFC West, though, at this point.
Yeah, I don't know how you could say otherwise. By the way, some breaking news just came down the pike here. Again, we're recording this on Tuesday. It looks like Russell Wilson is going to be benched in New York, and Jackson going to be the quarterback. That's good for the 49ers. Maybe they play the Giants later this year, but that just popped up on my Twitter feed, so I thought I should pass it along.
I was going to say it's good for my fantasy team because I have Malik Neighbors, but it looked like is there any update on him? It looked like he broke his collarbone potentially on Monday. Yeah, there was that throw in the end zone from Russ, and he made a diving attempt and came up and looked like maybe it was just separated shoulder. But yeah, that looked like, and I'll always have a huge place in my heart for Russell Wilson. I don't, the way things went kind of at the end was frustrating as a fan. Like I literally think that his last couple of years here, he became a detriment to this team winning. But I was, regardless of whatever criticisms you might have of Russell Wilson, nobody worked harder. Nobody wanted to be a great player more than Russell Wilson. He just went at it in a different way that kind of rubbed some people the wrong way. But this feels like the last opportunity now that he'll ever get to be a starter. If he wants to continue playing past this year, he's going to have to take, maybe that's not true because Joe Flacco is still starting in the league, right? I mean, but he's probably going to have to come to terms with the fact that if he wants to continue playing in this league, he's going to have to do it as a backup because this just, you could see this coming. Like he had some nice moments in that Dallas game, obviously, which made you think, oh, he can still get it done down the field because that's what we didn't see last year in Pittsburgh, and we didn't see enough of obviously in Denver. But you hear it how much they love Jackson Dart, and that was Brian Daboll's guy, and that's why they traded up to get him. And a lot of the buzz in that game on Sunday night was that forget who was doing the sideline reporting on the broadcast team there, but they said anyone we talk to within that Giants organization, you just bring up the name Jackson Dart, and they just light up. Like, doesn't guarantee he's going to hit the ground running and be, set the world on fire from the beginning, but they just love what he brings. And you can't struggle the way that Russell Wilson struggled the other night and just completely unable to get the ball to his wide receivers at all. You just can't do that when you have a head coach and a GM that are on the hot seat. They gotta show something. And if they can't win, they got to at least show that, hey, we got our next guy. Yep. And maybe that'll buy him some time.
Two things can be true. Russell Wilson brought the Seahawks to the greatest heights they've ever had. He's the greatest quarterback in Seahawks history to me. Mm-hmm. It's not really a close competition, to be honest with you. But also, it was time. And I have a saying that I use on my 49er shows all the time. What must be done eventually must be done immediately. Starting the season with Russell Wilson made no sense to me. This Giants team is not close to winning a championship. What are you doing starting Russell Wilson when you have Jackson Dart on the roster? It's time. Turn it over to him. You can build a statue to Russ outside of the stadium in Seattle. He'll never have to pay for a drink in Seattle.
There's a few other guys on those rosters that might get statues before he does.
Okay, but my point is, like, Russell Wilson's never going to have to buy a drink in Seattle again. Like, right. But it was time. His time is over. Good. I have too many scars from him torturing my 49ers for years, which I have told to his face. I have told Russell Wilson to his face that I hate his guts because he has tortured me. Great career. I don't want to say Hall of Fame career, but really, really great career. But it's over now.
Yeah. Yeah, the Hall of Fame thing's questionable. I think he needed to go to at least one more stop and be solid, serviceable. There's people that think he's a slam dunk Hall of Famer. I'm not so sure. I think he's borderline.
No, slam dunk Hall of Famer?
Yeah,
absolutely.
There's some who believe that. Yeah.
I mean, the man has 10 Pro Bowls is a lot of Pro Bowls, but I mean, he's only led the league in one category, which was he led the league in touchdowns in 2017. Mm-hmm. But other than that, he's never led the league in any category ever. Hall of Famer? No. I know he won a Super Bowl. Not to me, no. Close, but no. Anyway, that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Please like this video, subscribe to both channels, the 49ers Gold Standard and the Seahawks Forever. We would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Dan, I hope your team... Well, actually, I don't know. Am I rooting for you on Thursday or not? Normally, I just say I hope your team loses, but now I'm not sure.
You've got the tiebreaker, so you can root for. You can just live with whatever result happens.
That's true. But I will say I hope everybody gets out healthy. How about that? That's one thing we can both
do. That this it always seems like week 3 or 4 is when this starts to happen. Let's stem the tide here. Let's calm it down with the injuries.
I don't know who's left to get hurt for the Niners, but I don't even want to mention it. There is a theory that Christian McCaffrey is a health vampire and that he is sucking the health out of all the other 49ers so that he can stay healthy this year. I don't know if that's actually happening, but
it's working. Maybe. Yeah.
Anyway, like both channels, we appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody, and we'll be back next week.
Thanks, guys. I hope you like that format. Let me know down in the comments if you do. And if you're curious, if that's the first one of those you've caught, we alternate week to week. And so he hosted the show this week. Next week, I will be driving the ship, and we'll kind of go back and forth and do that. And then each of us post it to our own channels. I always have a good time talking to Rob. And it's always great to have a different perspective on things with different allegiances and a different viewpoint. It's a lot of fun to be able to expand our view here on Seahawks Forever and look at the entire division. Let me know what you think about what you're seeing from the other teams in this division. Were you surprised that the Eagles came back against the Rams? Who do you think is the best team in the division at this point? It's okay to say the Seahawks. You know, it's a little hard to tell this early because they've all played the Saints. Well, not all. The Rams haven't. But it does skew things a little bit. So with each week that we get into the season, we start to get larger sample size. We start to get a little bit more truth about who these teams are. And then this weekend, you know, we touched on it. The big game in the division is obviously Cardinals Seahawks. Rams Colts is big too. 49ers should have a pretty easy time, I would think, against Jacksonville. And then next week, a week from Sunday, so week 5, Seahawks will be home against the Buccaneers. And the 49ers and Rams will play each other. So that will be a big one, not just in the NFC West, but with NFC-wide implications with the Buccaneers off to a 3-0 start. If you would, please subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to support it and help me get it out there in front of more people. I am a full-time independent content creator. This is all I do. I hope you enjoy the work. And if you do, hit that thumbs up. Maybe hit the bell if you want to be notified of new content. And then check out the Patreon page as well. We're going to keep expanding that and even start tilting a little bit more towards where it'll never really take the priority over YouTube, but things will get posted first there for a little bit. In some cases, there will be some additional exclusive material there, things like the Hawks Film Lab, which Bryce Coots and I will be shooting tonight, doing some all-22 coaching breakdowns with his coaching expertise. So check that out, as well as Substack, where I write. And sometimes it's companion pieces for what I do here, and sometimes standalone pieces as well. I'll be writing an article later today about what we're seeing from Sam Darnold so far this season. And then tomorrow night, it is the return of the Seahawks Syndicate show, last Wednesday of every month. Brandon Kane and the Hawks Nest, Bryce of the Hawks Eye, Mookie Alexander, managing editor from Field Goals, and myself getting together and looking at the month that was, kind of wrapping up the first quarter of the season for the Seahawks. So check that out tomorrow night as well. Until then, forever and always go Hawks. Thanks a lot for watching, you guys. I appreciate it. We'll see you next time.